And so as we go into an overview of Revelation 17, let's start in Revelation 17. Let's look at verse number 5. And on her forehead, this is the harlot, was written a name of mystery, Babylon the Great, mother of harlots and of earth's abominations. If something is written on the forehead, we've learned about this with the mark of the beast. If something is written on the forehead, it is an ideology. If something is written on the wrist, it is an action to that ideology. You have branded yourself with whatever it is that the ideology is. That's who you are now. And now if it's on the wrist, now you're taking action to it. So you don't have to worry about getting the mark of the beast tatted on your forehead, but you should be concerned with not believing everything the state tells you. Because if you believe everything that your political pundit tells you, you're getting the mark right across your face. The harlot is provocative, but you can't take your eyes away from the harlot. And we can all pretend to be good, Christians in this room, that we've never had eyes that get persuaded. But at the end of the day, if the harlot were a disgusting-looking woman, this story has no foundation. But as it goes with this subject, sexuality is not something that is taken that folks dread, but we often succumb to it because of its short-term pleasure. And we don't worry about its long-term effects. And she is representative of a city that declares herself divine. And again, you have to understand the language. You have to be listening to the language. What else considers itself divine? Who else considers herself pure? The bride of Christ. And when we go into Revelation 17, and beginning in verse 9, it says, what does it say? I don't know. There it is. Revelation 17 and verse number 9, it says, this calls for a mind with wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman is seated. Now, if you've read this and you've spent some time in seminary, you're going to find that Rome is situated between 7 mountains. And so when you read about this, you think, oh, immediately, this is talking about Rome. But we also know that it's bigger than Rome. Because when you back up in that same chapter, in verse number 1, it says, then one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls, remember, we talked about that last week, came and said to me, come, I will show you the judgment of the great harlot, who is seated on many waters, with whom the king of the earth have committed sexual immorality, and with the wine of whose sexual immorality the dwellers on earth have become drunk. Many waters is at Rome. If Alan were here, maybe he could elaborate more on this for you, but many waters is at Rome. Ancient Babylon is situated between many waters, and the kings of the earth are drawn to her. And who is John writing to? You have to answer these little random questions. They may not seem important, but it helps us understand the verses all the more. Is he writing to the lost, or is he writing to the saved? Who is the Bible written to? Is it written to the lost or to the saved? I will answer the question. The Bible is not written to a group of people who cannot understand it. And the only way that you can understand it is to have the Spirit dwelling in you, giving you all sense of understanding. So who is the Bible written to? It's written to the saved. So the saved child of God, you are reading this, and hopefully it's making some sense to you. And if it's not, you're leaning on the Spirit for all guidance and truth. Lost friend, you're going to read this book and be lost to the back. Why? Because this book, in it, has so many supernatural understandings and things that are far beyond our own brain. And I don't care how many years you spend trying to understand it, without the Spirit's guidance, you will fall into false teaching. Revelation 17 and verse 6, it says, and I saw the woman drunk the blood of the saints, the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. But here's what John says. When I saw her, I marveled greatly. Even John marvels at a woman drunk with the blood of the saints and the martyrs of Christ. Even John, the beloved, marvels at her. Why? Because the harlot says this is the way to life. This is the way to meaning. This is the way to wealth. This is the way to comfort. This is the way to self-actualization. And John here in verse 7 says, watch out. Because the angel, in verse number 7 says, the angel said to me, why do you marvel? I will tell you the mystery of this woman, and of the beast with the 7 heads and the 7 horns he carries her. This image shows what she really is. What a state that turns her back on God really looks like. See, we mock other religions for expressing themselves in worship, whether it be standing and kneeling and fasting and cheering and somberness or whatever. But really, when we make it easy to worship God by just don't make me stand. I hate it when the song director makes me stand. I'm just going to sit, and then we sit. And I've been in services. I mean, in South Sudan, they stood for like 3 hours, the whole service, right? Because it beat sitting on the bench that they had, not the padded pew. But nonetheless, we act so put out when we have to express any type of emotion during worship. And then we want to, finger point and say, well, that's very Pentecostal of you, or that's very whatever of you, to have any type of expression in worship. We can't. And in God, I've never seen a Baptist church kneel. That would be absurd. Some of you wouldn't be able to get up and be kneeling all service. But at the end of the day, when we make it easier to worship God for our convenience, worshiping the state doesn't seem that absurd. Because when I tell you to kneel before your king, you go, that takes some devotion, right? And like I said, for some of you, you're like, that's going to take some serious devotion and about 3 or 4 people to help me up. Right? And so when I say kneel before your king, Jesus, you go, well, I will, but it's going to take me a minute. But when I say kneel before the state, you go, no, I'm not doing that. You realize how much work it takes? And now you want me to do this? No way. I'll do it for Christ, but I'm not doing it for the state. And yet, what has the harlot done? Satan has done a marvelous job in getting us to where I can go to a ball game and I can cheer, I can yell, I can holler, I can scream. Why? Because they're doing something that brings me joy. And then I come to church. I do not know this song. Right? And it's a completely different emotion. Why? Because Satan has made it so much easier to worship the state, to have any type of emotion and any type of joy toward anything else that isn't possibly related to Christ. That's just my little tidbit of, information on worship. She makes promises she can't keep. And she can't keep them because she has no power to keep them. Christ is warning you. This angel is warning John. Do not be seduced by her. This is happening here and now among us. We don't want to be corrected. We want to be satisfied and justified. I want to be encouraged that what I'm doing is the right thing. I don't want to come to church and be told that I need to change my life in any sort of way. That I need to adjust the way I operate and think and treat others. We don't want to be corrected. But you cannot be justified and then also be in sin. You will never be satisfied chasing the harlot. You will always be chasing. And when you find addicts, one of the biggest things that they will tell you is that they are always chasing for the next hit. You're never satisfied. Holiness, guys, is a fight. It's not just a declaration, a pat on the back, and now you get to feel good because now you get to call yourself a Christian amongst a bunch of zealots. That's not how it works. Holiness is a fight. But instead we get hung up on other people's sin and not trying to make sure we keep track of our own. Babylon always ends in violence toward the people of God. It doesn't end with some type of justification. It doesn't end with some type of, oh, look out for the people of God. It never ends that way. It always ends in violence. Because she is bathed in the blood of the martyrs and the followers of Christ. Psalm chapter 2. Why do nations rage and peoples plot in vain? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against who? The Lord, and against his anointed, saying, let us burst their bonds apart and cast away their cords from us. Kingdom people are always going to be dismissed and hated upon because they have a life that flourishes without the worship of the state. You're going against the system that the world is trying to create. They want you to rely on themselves. And you're saying, I don't need them. I vote, and sometimes it goes my way. And that's cool. But I don't need Washington to be a good, effective child of God. I don't need Sacramento to be a good, effective child of God. I don't need La Habra City Council to be an effective child of God. I don't need these people. I give unto Caesar's that which is Caesar's, but understand this, my citizenship is not of this world. And neither should yours be. The harlot will do everything she can to get you to quit worshiping Christ and give your life over to temporary things. Some of you right now have already given into this world. In Revelation chapter 17, continuing on into verse 16. And then the horns that you saw, they and the beast will hate the harlot. They will make her desolate, naked, devour her flesh, and burn her up with fire. Anyone ever met a destructive satanic force that is honest in its destruction? Has Satan ever approached you with something that is meant to destroy you and said, hey, by the way, this is going to cause you years of grief, and you're going to lose your identity in it all, and it's, your one decision that took you 5 minutes to make, you're going to be undoing it for the next 20 years. That's all. And then you took it and said, this sounds great, can't wait. It never has worked that way after. But enters this Christ follower, or here enters this harlot, and she claims to have everything you need. And the beast that she rides in on seems mighty and powerful. Powerful enough to take care of your enemies and your problems and your griefs. And yet, she's devoured by the very thing she came in on. And I didn't make this connection until this morning. But you've got a choice whom you want to identify as. You want to identify as the harlot or the bride. Because you have a choice today. And the harlot will make herself appear divine, make herself appear appealing, make herself desirable. But make no mistake, her end result is devoured by the very thing she wrote in on. The bride of Christ, when she comes, she will not be devoured, but she will walk hand in hand with her King. Not consumed by destruction, but consumed in holiness. That choice, as easy as it is yours, and yet, more often than not, we seem to make the wrong one. We're being offered ease, comfort, and it turns out to devour you. You ever had enough money to make you feel at ease? I remember when I was younger, I used to tell my mom, I don't care if I'm ever rich, I just want to have enough money or I don't worry about it. And the older I get, and more people I've met millionaires. I don't think I've ever met a billionaire, but I've met millionaires. Have all the money they need, and they still worry about how much money they got. And so I don't know where that line is. I still worry about money more than I care to admit. But yet some of us continue to chase it. Some of us give our lives to it. And some of us claim that we're some type of family martyr, that I'm doing this in the name of my family, I'm doing this in the name of my kids, I'm doing all of this so that everybody else around me can have a better life, and yet what happens is we're completely absent from the people that we're claiming to do it all for. My grandparents did a lot for their family, but the biggest, most important thing that my grandfather ever did was he was present. Didn't have all the money in the world, drove an Oldsmobile, but we had everything we needed because we had each other. And somewhere we got lost in a couple generations where we thought that in order to have everything we needed to have all the money we ever needed. Because the harlot stepped in and said, wait a minute, this greatest generation, we can't have that. It's a bait and switch. And I know this, that it's going to take revival to fix the woes of this generation for the next. When I see that what is so easily available online, when I see the disruption that is continuing to take place completely unfiltered on social media, and a president's approval rating is based on whether or not he chooses to keep or get rid of TikTok, we've got priorities mixed up. And our children are suffering because of it. Because we want something to do to avoid everybody in public, so we want to scroll. And we keep scrolling, and we keep scrolling. And the iPhone did a funny thing a few years ago. They added this thing where it will show you how many hours you spend a day on your phone, and how many hours you spend a day on each app, and how much battery life you spend consuming one thing or the other. Yeah, that's a humbling thing. And it used to be. When it first came out, it was humbling, right? You look at it and go, whoa, I spend 8 hours a day on Instagram. That's crazy. And then and now we're numb to it. Well, of course I'm going to spend 7 hours a day on Snapchat. Look at the world, right? And we have excused the lukewarm behavior that Christ would spew out of his mouth. And so it's going to take revival. It's going to take revival. I have in a great challenge. There are people today that I come in contact with in our community, and you can tell there is a huge disconnect. Folks don't know how to talk to each other. There's a disconnect. Unless there's a phone in front of them, they don't know how to make a first reach of communication. There's this weird, you don't know how to say, hi, how are you? I'm Frank. We don't know how to make that type of communication anymore. And anymore, somebody comes to the door and knocks on your door, immediately you're thinking either they want to sell something, they're Jehovah's Witness, or I'm about to be robbed, right? Like, it can't be just somebody coming by. When's the last time your neighbor stopped by with a cobbler? That doesn't happen anymore. If our neighbors come by for anything, they're like, get your kid out of my lawn, right? Like, that's the only thing that we have in contact with one another. There's no communication. And for many of us, we go Monday through Saturday, and we don't speak to anybody else in this room. And for some of you, you haven't been in this room for a couple of months, and for some of you, you haven't spoken to the ones that haven't been here since the last time they were here. But then you have the audacity to say, well, man, I'm sure it would be nice if they'd come to church. Sure it would be nice if you reached out to them. But the harlot has got us convinced that we don't communicate. That's weird. That's uncomfortable. So when we go into Revelation chapter 18, the first few verses there, after this I saw the angel coming down from heaven, having great authority, and the earth was bright with his glory, in verse number 2. And he called out with a mighty voice, Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great. She has become a dwelling place for demons, a haunt for every unclean spirit, a haunt for every unclean bird, a haunt for every unclean and detestable beast. For all nations have drunk the wine of her passion, of her sexual immorality. The kings of the earth have committed immorality with her, and the merchants of the earth have grown rich from the power of her luxurious living. She becomes the dwelling place of demons. What a wonderful example to be. The reason so many children of God fall for the harlot is because they're ignorant enough into believing that they can't be possessed by her temptations. Now, we get into some things right here, and I just want to say this. Demonic forces are real. Demonic forces are very real. You cannot believe in angelic forces. You can't believe in the Spirit of God and Him working and moving among the people. You can't believe in all of Acts 2 and then get here to Revelation and go, yeah, well, demonic forces aren't really a thing. That's exactly what He wants you to think. Demonic forces are very real. And can a child of God be possessed by the devil? No. But here's the thing. Can a tick possess a dog? No. A tick cannot possess a dog. A dog doesn't become a tick, right? But can a tick get into a dog and make that dog so sick and eventually die? Yes. That's why ticks are serious. So how easy is it to fight someone else that doesn't even realize they're in a fight? Because you're over here saying, I can't be possessed by the devil. And so you go off and you do unthinkable deeds. Because you think, God's just going to forgive me in the end. And Satan's got you like a tick. And he can't control you. He can't take you over. And he can't steal your soul. But he will rob everything from you in this life. Because you thought, no one could get me. And so as a result, you're in this fight with the devil, and you don't even realize you're in a fight. Can you imagine stepping foot into the octagon at the MGM, and you don't even realize that you're like there to fight? You're like, I'm here for a good time with all these people. And then all of a sudden, you look across the way from you, and the welterweight champ sucker punches you. Boom! Right in the face. And you're like, I thought I was here for a good time. And just as you're kind of coming to yourself, boom! He hits you again. And you go, I didn't sign up for this. But in reality, you're standing in the ring. And many of you, you're like, I'm living fine. I'm living large. God will forgive me. And you're right in the ring of sin. And God is telling you, and John is warning you, don't fall for this. Because, folks, holiness is a war. And it is a fight. And you can pretend that you're not in it, and you'll get sucker punched in the face. Or know that you're in it and get equipped. And quit playing defense, start playing some offense against this enemy. We avoid revelation because it's weird. But it is the weapon to equip you against a very real enemy. Because when you read this, you go, you know what? I know exactly what John's talking about. I know all the different appeals that the state tries to offer me. And that the world and the culture tries to offer me. I'm not going to fall for this. You're not in a fight against people. You're not in a fight against people. We immediately read this, and we go, we need to go on a fight against people. We need to go on against a fight against people who are sinning. And so then we find people that are sitting out in the wall with, sinner! And you're the person I'm supposed to fight. You're going to punch me in the face. That's what the preacher said. And so immediately we're going to start fighting a bunch of sinners. Here's the reality. The scripture told you, plain and simple, that your fight is not against people. Your fight is not against people. You're at war with principalities and powers. You're against things that possess people. But Jesus made it very clear to you that the people you're meant to love. It's the power that you're at war with. My goal isn't to dismiss all the sinners and put them on an island and blow the island up so that way there will be no more sin. That's not how that works. My hope and prayer is to isolate the sin and what's causing the behavior so that it can no longer have its effect any longer. Otherwise, how are we ever going to reach the lost world if we just tell them that they're all a bunch of horrible, terrible, no good people? That's not how you reach lost people. You're not signing anybody up for the kingdom, telling them that everything they're doing is all a big waste of time, and you should never cheer in sports, because that's what the preacher said. No, we missed the mark. We are to love the people. Relentlessly love them the way that Christ loved them. We need more people in our church that look nothing like us, because it is better representative of the love of Christ that all people of all walks of life come to listen to the truth that is the Word of God. That is how God intended it. I want your friends and loved ones and friends to all come. That's great. But we also need those people that we would never speak to, because they just as badly need to hear the gospel of Jesus Christ. The question is when are we going to start taking the Bible serious? Demons are real. The book of Revelation, like the gospel, is trying to save you from figuring this out on your own. It's trying to save you the trouble. Listen, you don't need to die and find out that you are now eternally separated from God. You can make the choice today to serve Him. You can make the choice today to repent of your sins, turn away from this life, and start living a life that is reflective of the way God intended you to live. But that choice has got to be yours. Next, we see her false foundations and illusions actually exposed. And we see her emptied of blessing in 6 through 8. And then you have all these people that start to mourn. But they don't mourn that she's burning and in smoke. They mourn that they can no longer be wealthy and comfortable because now she's gone. There's no real love for Babylon. There's no real love for folks in Washington today. I got one word for you, tariff. That changes everything for a lot of people. We're not red, there's not a lot of folks wearing red hats right now. Why? Because, he's not doing what I wanted him to do. Well, no kidding. It's like he's doing it for himself. No kidding. Just like the woman that you didn't vote for would have done the same thing. You got to wake up. The state has nothing for you. Christ has everything you need. And I cannot make that more evident than looking at this passage here. Because they mourn, not because she's gone, but they mourn because now who's going to give us everything we want? And there are sides on both sides of the aisle that do this every time there's an election. We have this hangover of now what do we do? Right? The world, America, as we know, it's going to come undone. And we do this every election cycle. And it's ad nauseum. And we don't mourn because President Biden's gone, or Obama's gone, or Bush is gone, or whoever. We mourn because, now how am I supposed to get my way? And Christians, we go right into martyrdom. We go, now they're going to start persecuting us left and right. Yeah, you know what? Maybe they ought to. They would wake us up to stop serving the state. You want the state to make it easier for you to worship God. You're sitting in His house today without any worry of persecution. But you want the state to make it easier for you. You want the state to tell you that it's okay for your child to bring your Bible to school when they already can. And we just want things to be easier. And the reality is we are at war. So how do we live? I want to talk to Christians. That means those who are actively following Jesus. You're a moral conservative that attends church, but you don't see any need to submission to the kingship of Jesus. I'm not sure you should count yourself as a dedicated citizen of the King of Jesus Christ just yet. Because for so many of us, we are devout to conservatism, but we are not devout to the King. And we need to get that disconnect. Because you're going to find that Jesus was a little bit of a conservative. He's also a little bit of a socialist. I know, scary, but he kind of thought that whole thing about everybody deserves their fair share. Everybody deserves what? Salvation. That doesn't go, wait a minute, they should earn it, right? That's not the gospel, though. So you got to get away from politics. When you're looking at theology, when you're looking at Christ, Don't you get yourself mixed up in politics. Because you're going to find yourself at war with which one am I more faithful to? My political ideology or Christ? Nothing wrong with politics. There's nothing wrong with diving into it a little bit. Not anything wrong with it. But do not devote yourself to it. Do not give your life into it. Do not make it your life's mission to see to it that that message is pushed forward while dismissing the gospel of Jesus Christ. Revelation 8, 4 and 5. He says, I heard another voice from heaven. I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, lest you take part in her sins, lest you share in her plagues. For her sins are heaped high as heaven, and God has remembered her iniquities. Oh, it would be sure nice if God would just forget. But he hasn't, and he won't. This call to live isn't an old Jerusalem, but a new one. But we have a choice. The children of Israel, Revelation would call them fake. I don't want to go too far into that because I don't want anti-Semitic comments on my Facebook. But at the same time, the Jews were given a choice. And the state told them, here's Jesus, or here's Barabbas. You choose. Do you choose your king, or do you choose the thief? And what was their answer? Oh, but we have but one king, and that king is Caesar. We have but one king, and that's the state. And they made their choice. And Christ hung on that cross. And Barabbas went free. Always would like to know the story of Barabbas. But they had a choice. And you have a choice. And there must be an outright rejection. An outright rejection. And talking about how do we live from here, there must be an outright rejection of the state of Babylon and the violence of Babylon. We must embrace love and peace. We created that Second Amendment, and now all we think about is violence. And we need to cool it on the violence as children of God. While everyone is angry and irate, we ought to stand out in the crowd, not join the mob. We have to practice radical hospitality. Bring in the people that don't deserve it. Embrace them. Kill them with hospitality, as my mom would say. And when the enemy comes to your door, you don't whisk them away and hope that they only eat ramen for dinner. You bring them in, right? Bring them in for that Akashi Wagyu steak dinner, right? If you haven't had that, you're not living. But you bring them in, you give them the best stuff. We must reject the consumption of the state by constantly being in a state of generosity. We ought to be so blessed that we have to share it with others. And we can't just hold it to ourselves, that we have to give it to somebody else. We should have more joy helping others than helping ourselves. And somebody says, why does he do all that? Why do you do all this for the church? Why are you doing all that over at the Parsons? Why are you doing all that over here at the church building? And I can tell you for the countless others, there's not just been one or two, there's been handfuls of people, or in the year that I've been here, that have given up a lot of time, money, blood, sweat, and tears for our facilities. And when you were to ask every single one of them, you'd get the same answer. I have a joy serving the Lord. Because there's a greater joy in serving the Lord than serving ourselves. And I know for some of the folks that have come and they have served this facility better than their own home. And it's not to knock their own home. Love all your all's homes and inviting me in, but if we're being honest, when you were done doing whatever project you were doing around here, it looks nicer than your own home. And already know you get more joy out of serving the Lord than yourself. And lastly, we must reject the ideology of the harlot that suggests that perverting God's design will bring us more satisfaction than just simply obeying Him. We will value souls in equivalence to the King's love for souls, because that's what He has called us to do. And so we must obey. We must fight the enemy, not alone, but together. And if you've been here from day one, you already know where I'm going with these words. And if you don't, then my bad. We need a refresh on what these words ought to mean to us, because it's only then, when we do these few things, that we can, in fact, then grow. And these are our core values as a church. These core values are not just 4 cool words to put on a website and check off a list. These are 4 words that if you live by them, you have the weaponry necessary to defeat a very serious demonic enemy. Amen. These words are tools not only for our church, but for you individually to grow. And so for those that may be new, or for those that may have forgotten, we are a loving, growing, giving, obedient church. And when we step away from those things and we begin to serve the state, we have lost our first love. We have lost and are in danger of losing the candlestick that we read about at the beginning of Revelation. Remember, our church's core values ought to be our own core values. Am I a loving, growing, giving, and an obedient child of God? In closing, I want to remind you, friend, that you don't have to serve this unforgiving, unrelenting, miserable master any longer. That today is the day of redemption. Today is the day of baptism. Today is the day of rejuvenation. Today is the day of revival. Today is the day that we reject the harlot and we embrace the King. Today we reject the beast and embrace the King. Today we reject the notion that I am myself going to just give in to whatever society gives me, as the harlot would. But today I'm going to be a faithful bride of Jesus Christ. Last week,